Hola chicos. Today's video I'm going to go over the vocab for capítulo 2. We've already seen the family vocab in my other video, so this one's going to be specifically about vocabulario 2. So as we know, each chapter is split into vocab and grammar, and then of course we have reading sections, and most of the vocab is split into vocab 1, vocab 2. So if you log into eStudio, you can preview the vocab here. If you have access to Blackboard, you can also preview on the interactive chalkboard. So when you log in, you pull up your textbook, right? I'm on the textbook tab. And we're on capítulo 2, so I'm going to click on there. And then I have vocabulario. So I could review the vocab for family, or if I click here, vocabulario 2. That's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? So our goals for this unit are I can talk about my family using the new vocab and using tener. And then our other goal is going to be I can talk about my house using the new vocab and using tener. So let's talk about what words we need to know. First we have la casa. La casa is the house. So in a house there are some things we might see. Un árbol, which you can guess by the placement is a tree. Un carro, if you can roll your R's, you should do your best to do so. El jardín, which is the garden but is also really the yard. You might also hear el patio. So even though to us a patio is just like a patio itself, it can refer to the entire yard in some places. And una flor. So if you're a cognate ninja, you know that means a flower. So as we go through this vocab, what we're going to find is that a lot of the words that are house related are regionalized. And what I mean by that is in some countries they'll call it one thing, in some countries they'll call it another thing. So let's go down and look at the sentences under the picture. La familia Benavides. So you could sound that word out if you needed to. La familia Benavides tiene una casa privada. What could privada mean? Cognate ninjas, what do you think? Yeah, private. So they have a private house. En las afueras, or en los suburbios. So we could probably pick out suburbios means suburbia. So if you live in las afueras or los suburbios, you live in the suburbs. You don't live downtown or in the center of the city. Most people in Spokane live in the suburbs. Hay un jardín delante de su casa. Okay, we know the jardín. And this word I, that one's new. And we're going to scroll down. We're going to find out that I means there is or there are. So there is a garden or yard, blank the house. A logical word to go here, I think, would be in front of. So we can decipher that delante de means in front of. This is one of the 4 prepositions we're going to study this unit, and it's in your chapter, the chapter summary on that grammar page. So you're probably going to want to fill that out. Delante de, in front of. So hay un jardín delante de su casa. Los Benavides tienen un carro nuevo. So they have a new car. No es viejo. It's not old. Hay una bicicleta. There is a, and yep, you got it, bicycle. Detrás del carro. So if delante de means in front of, detrás de means behind. So that's another preposition you're going to want to fill out in your grammar sheet. Scroll down a little bit. Un edificio alto. So looking at the picture, we know alto means tall. What do you think edificio could mean? Yeah, you got it. It means a building. So this is a tall building. Una casa de departamentos. So if we broke that down, that would literally say a house of apartments, which sounds pretty goofy. But what it really means is an apartment building. Un apartamento. So again, cognates. So that's an apartment. Un piso. Now, piso can mean floor, like just I live on the 3rd floor or the 2nd floor. But piso can also mean an apartment in some countries. So we're going to be introduced to this word cada. Cada means each. So I could say each house, cada casa, or each apartment, cada apartamento. And it's not going to change for concordancia. That one's a trickster, okay? So keep your eye on cada. La familia Solís tiene un apartamento en la ciudad. So the family Solís, or the Solís family, has an apartment in the city. That's right. Ciudad is city. It's not really a cognate, but it's maybe easy to remember because it's similar. Los Solís, or the Solises, have an apartment en un edificio alto. They have an apartment in a tall building. Cada piso del edificio tiene 6 apartamentos. So, we know cada means each. Each floor of the, and we'll look at where that word comes from in a second, building has 6 apartments. Scroll down. Los cuartos y los muebles. So these are the rooms and the objects you'll find inside a house. La cocina. So obviously la cocina is the kitchen. El comedor. El comedor is going to be your eating room or your dining room. Una mesa, that's what you eat on, so that's your table. Una silla, that's what you sit at. Here we have the explanation of the expression I. And I is super handy because it means there is or there are. So I could say there is a house, or I could say there are 5 houses, and I don't have to change anything. It's actually really handy. Also, we'll see that in questions. So if I say, is there a house? I just plug I in. Are there 5 houses? Again, we'll just use I. That information is also on the back of that grammar page, so you're going to want to fill that out too. There is, there are, is there, are there, okay? So we could say, there's a garage al lado de or next to the house. There's trees, hay árboles alrededor, that one's tough, alrededor de la casa, around the house. Now, we see de and la, but when de is followed by el, they actually make a contraction and they become del. So I can say, delante de something that's feminine, and I'll say delante de la. But if that something is masculine, it becomes delante del árbol, detrás del sofá. And the reason for that is because if you have de, el next to each other, you have 2 E's. And in Spanish, they don't really like to have the same vowel sound next to each other because they get smushed together. So what they do is instead of having people smush it together, they smush it together for you. So we'll scroll back up to that sentence we saw, which was here. Cada piso del edificio, right? Each floor of the building. So there are only 2 contractions in Spanish, and you've already learned one of them, so that's awesome. But we want to remember there's no apostrophes. Okay, now here comes la sala. La sala is the word for the room. And if you just talk about la sala, you're generally talking about the living room. So in a living room, you might find una lámpara, una mesita. We know that ita or ito means little, right? Perrito, gatito, mesita. So this is maybe a little table. Una sofá, that one's a cognate, so that's nice. Just remember that, tilde. Okay? But you also, in some places, might hear sala de, the room of, and then an activity like la sala de comer, the eating room, la sala de this, the sala de that. And in those countries, sala just means the room in general. So that's what I was referring to when I mentioned that. It's really regionalized. So we're going to read this paragraph here. So the word el carro is used in lots of places in Latin America. But in Spain, for example, they say el coche. The word I am most familiar with is el auto, because it's short for automóvil. But whichever 3 that you use is totally fine. It just depends on where you're at. The word for piso means floor, and in Spain, piso can also mean apartment. So again, that's what I mentioned earlier. You also might hear, even though they sound goofy, un departamento and un apartamiento. So you're going to hear all 4 variations: apartamento, departamento, apartamiento, and piso. And those all 4 mean an apartment. So just like here we take the elevator, and in England you take a lift, it's the same idea. Depending on what country you're in, they might use different vocab to communicate the same message. So let's scroll down just a little bit more. We'll get to the last. El cuarto de baño, or you can simply call it el baño. And el cuarto de dormir, or la recámara. Or, and you'll look here on the left, that recámara is used in Mexico and also some other countries. I haven't really used it a lot in my experience, but you might hear el dormitorio, the dormitory. That one I think is very popular. La alcoba, la habitación, and la pieza. I would say dormitorio and pieza are the most common. You can use whichever one you please, but my suggestion is dormitorio because it's the easiest to remember because you sleep, you're dormant in the dormitorio, okay? So when you meet someone from another country, you might ask them, well, what do you use to say bedroom? And they might give you a different answer. So the biggest thing with these, the vocabulary we're seeing in this list is that there's a lot of little words happening. We've got these prepositions like in front of, around, behind, next to, and they all go with a day on them. We've also got some of these words that are actually compound phrases like the room of the bath, right? The room of sleeping. And so you're going to want to be careful. When you choose to use certain grammar, or certain vocabulary, excuse me, you're going to want to choose something that's easy for you to remember and easy for you to write. You need to be able to recognize them, sure. But my suggestion is to choose one that resonates with you and just go with that one, okay? So that's my spiel on the vocab for this chapter. If you have any questions, let me know. Good luck on the eStudio. Bye!